Hello out there. It's great to be here. I am excited to continue the journey that we've been on the last couple of days on the 5 domains of embodiment or the 5 domains of embodied leadership. I am Leanne Mallory, and I'm here to go on this ride with you. If you are joining us for the first time today, it's currently Friday, and this is the fourth in a series. So feel free to go back and check out the conversations we've been in over the last couple of days on some of the earlier domains. I'll give you a bit of a preview on this session, but we're going to go ahead and dive in shortly to talk about the fifth and final domain of embodiment in a moment. If you are here on our social media channels, go ahead and say a quick hello in the chat just so that I know that we are live, and we'll get started in a moment. Okay, our chat is looking pretty quiet today, but I do think we're live, so I'm going to go ahead and dive in. If you're out there and you want to let us know where you're dialing in from, questions you may have, if you're watching, feel free to chat. And if you're watching later, thanks for showing up. You can always find us again here online. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, for those who don't know me well yet, I'm Leanne Mallory. I'm the CEO of Guts and Grace Leadership, which is an embodied leadership school for women, for female executives and women in the workplace. And I identify as an embodied leadership and executive coach for the secretly spiritual woman in the workplace. What that means to be an embodied leadership and executive coach is that on one hand, I've deeply studied the art and practice of authentic leadership, of how to develop our presence, our power, and our impact by really bringing our whole selves to the table. And also, I've been in a deep study of the art and practice of being human. So how to live in alignment with our values, how to build lasting and coherent relationships, how to honor and take care of our bodies so that we can do the great work we're born to do without burning out. And I would say a lot of my work really is kind of at the intersection of what we might see as the personal and professional. Often we'll kind of invest heavily in learning how to do great leadership or how to work or how to get things done or how to be productive. And we'll invest heavily in taking care of ourselves and maybe going to yoga or having a certain kind of fitness routine. But the question of how do I bring that stuff together? How does one translate into the other? And how does the learning I'm doing in one domain really inform and weave with the other domain so that I can be a comprehensive human and a great leader in all of the domains of my life is one of the things that I really care a lot about and specialize in my coaching and training work. So in the spirit of that and for the sake of that, today we're going to continue and complete our journey on a series on the 5 domains of embodied leadership. And this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I think often when we start working in the domain of embodiment, we're in this kind of question like, what does it mean? How do I know what's relevant to my embodiment? Or maybe we just think it's like our posture. And the truth is it's a very deep, very beautiful rabbit hole that there's a lot to learn inside of. And ultimately it really gives us the capacity, the possibility to start to work with our own nervous systems, work with our own build, kind of get a roadmap to our own kind of human operating system so that we can make better choices and really almost like be our own teachers or be our own gurus, learning from the inside out how to bring the kind of presence and the kind of impact we want to bring to the world. So there's a lot here. And this series is just a short kind of snippet and taste of that. I do want to, though, before we go too far, give you a moment to drop in here in presence with me. Since we're talking about embodied leadership, it's great to start with feeling our bodies and actually becoming present. So I could just say, do that in the way you know how to do that. Many of us these days have some kind of a practice, but I'll give a little bit of guidance for us in this moment. So I invite you to, wherever you're at and wherever you're watching from, take a moment, take a deeper breath, and bring your awareness, your paying attention to the sensations in your body. So let yourself breathe and also feel. And we might say just doing that at this moment in time in our world as it is can be a bit of a revolution. I'm breathing, I'm feeling, I'm paying attention. If your mind wanders, bring it back. Feel, for example, your back on the chair if you're leaning back, or your feet on the ground, or your hands in your lap. And feel the way that your breathing expands and then collapses your rib cage. And then pick one other place in your body to pay attention to. Maybe it's a place that you know you tend to hold tension, and you could bring your awareness there and invite it to relax a little bit. Or just a place you don't attend to very often. Maybe you don't feel the back of your heart frequently, for example. You could try that on. Great. So partly we do this because it brings us into a state that's more open, more ready, more available for new learning. But also we do this because paying attention to the sensations in our body is one of the quickest ways to actually get present and to get here. It may be that now that you've transitioned to listening again, you start thinking about your to-do list again, but I invite you as we go through this talk today to feel yourself as much as you can, or as often as you can, as part of the practice of attending to your embodiment. All right, so what is this word embodiment? What does it mean? Again, if you have been with us over the last couple of days, I've said a few things, so I'll say it similar here, that the word embodiment has started to get to be a trendy word in the leadership space, in the corporate space, in general in the world. More than a couple of years ago, we're hearing words like embodiment, like somatics, which is another word that really refers to the living body and its wholeness and our living inside of that. And it's kind of like mindfulness. Yeah, 10, 15 years ago, not as many of us in the workplace were talking about mindfulness, but now it's become a real part of our vernacular, and I hope that's going to be so for embodiment. But that being said, what does it really mean, and what does it add to this conversation about leadership? So what I want to do in the next few minutes here is to offer another puzzle piece about what is embodiment. How do we think about our embodiment? I've been introducing over the course of these sessions the 5 domains of embodied leadership, which in my world are movement, emotions, mindset, mission, and energy. And the goal here is to give you a sense of what they are so that you can start exploring your relationship with them back at work. I am also going to be offering next week a new masterclass called Your Body, Your Partner, the only proven path to greater presence, purpose, and power without burnout. So if that sounds good to you, if you'd like to get to know a little bit more about what that path would be and how do you actually use these tools to enhance your presence, enhance your purpose and impact at work, as well as work with resilience and reduce burnout, I'd love to share more with you about that. We're going to get more into the how in that session, whereas these kind of short live sessions we're doing this week are more about the what. What is it? And then next week, how do we use it? And we'll make sure that there is a URL to register for that masterclass in the notes of this show, so feel free to find them there shortly. Both of these offers are part of our next Guts and Grace cohort launch, which is a year-long women's leadership mastermind and coaching program that I run under the umbrella of Guts and Grace. And you can find out more about that by messaging me directly and or by booking a Guts and Grace coaching discovery call, which you can find at gutsandgrace.com/apply, and have a conversation with me or one of my team members about really how specifically in your unique case can you apply these tools to enhance your leadership, to advance in your career, or to reduce burnout if that is the thing you're most concerned about at this time. Today, however, will be at the tail end of a series on the 5, sometimes 4, sometimes 5, depending upon who asks and how I'm feeling. But I use the acronym MEME, and the second M is squared when I teach this work. So movement, emotions, mindset, mission, and energy, as a way of remembering all of the different aspects of ourselves that are contained in what we might call our embodiment. So as a reminder, the first 4 domains, movement, your body posture, shape, the way you move through the world, the way you carry yourself, emotions, the chemical and feeling aspect of your embodiment, mindset, the stories and narratives that define who we are, and mission, the automatic habitual direction our bodies and our actions and our thoughts tend to go into. So this is the beginning. You can find these in the series prior to today. But today we're going to talk about the fifth domain of embodied leadership, which is energy, the electric domain of our embodiment. Now, before I say more about energy, I want to again presence this question: why would we bother learning about this? How does it help me to actually have a knowledge or an understanding of these 5 domains? The big answer to that question is because having a basic knowledge of these domains and getting to know them from the inside out so that you're aware when your presence is actually impacted by, let's say, your emotions or the stories and narratives that you tell, or your body posture and shape that we might call this kind of bucket of movement. It gives you the opportunity to really work with it rather than either working against it or it working against you. Most of the time, these are aspects of ourselves that operate a little bit by default. Sometimes we'll just say like, oh, that's just my personality. It's just how I am. It's just how I do. It's how I be. And so if that's the case, then if it's not working in certain contexts, if it isn't helping you advance in your leadership, if it is leading to burnout, well, then what do we do? And the approach that I take in working with embodied leadership and really teaching leaders how to understand, how to tap into, how to learn from the wisdom of their bodies is that it can be a partner and it can actually be more of a malleable aspect of you than you think. And not like, oh, I should just kind of change this in this way and then I'll get X result, but more like if I learn the how the operating system works, then I can begin to unravel, reprogram, be in collaboration with it in different ways for the sake of what I want in my life, for the sake of the kind of leader or the kind of parent or the kind of friend or the kind of human that I really want to be. That may be who I am deep down, but not always how I show up on the surface. So really working with this work gives you the opportunity to be more intentional and less reactive, less by default back at work and also in your life. So that all being said, let's talk about the 5th domain of embodied leadership. I called this domain energy. It's kind of, again, the electric and it's the electric domain of embodiment. And it's also, in a way, it's a little bit of a catch-all for what's left when we've already gone through the other domains. So it really points to the more subtle aspects of who we are, the things where you might go, oh, there's this person and there's something about them that's hard to put my finger on. Or people might say that about you, right? It's like, we hear this a lot in the workplace. We're not promoting her and we're not entirely sure why. There's just something that's hard to put our finger on. Now that can be, for sure, if we're talking about women's advancement in the workplace, that can be kind of code words for some serious discrimination going on. And if if you're a sincere person who's making that assessment, it can also be this aspect of embodiment that's a little harder to define or to describe or to name or to speak about, which is why I think it's really important that we name this part of it, because we're actually getting witnessed this way, we're self-assessing this way, we're assessing others from this place. So what does it actually include? For me, the domain of energy, the 5th domain of embodied leadership, includes things like your quality of presence in general, and then also in different kinds of situations or different moments. So sometimes we'll tell the story about, a person who wants to hire a caregiver for someone in their family, and you're kind of looking at somebody's resume, and you're like, okay, all of the skills are there. They've done A, they've done B, they've got client testimonials, great results, and so on and so forth. But then when I meet the person right away, I go, oh, but they're not warm. Like they don't seem warm to me. And then suddenly I might be like, wow, do I want to hire this person as a caregiver for my loved one if they don't have this if they don't exude this core quality of warmth? But actually, it's like not that they're doing anything wrong. It's a little hard to describe, but there's something about them. We could say, directness might be like a quality of presence, for example. Again, it's not about exactly what the person's doing or not doing. You could do the same thing with a quality of direct or with a quality of diffuse, for example. And that may be ideal for certain kinds of scenarios. So it's can you access, is this kind of quality accessible to you? Does it tend to be your MO? Another aspect of energy when it comes to our embodiment is it's more like the amount of energy you're able to run. So you may know people who tend to really be quite subtle in how they are, how they're being, how they feel, how they seem, how they come across to you. It's almost like a quietness to them. That's one kind of energy, right? Another version could be somebody who's really loud. Maybe their voice is loud. Maybe their voice isn't even loud, but in a way, their presence is loud. Their energy is loud. They feel dynamic. And certainly, if we think about different kinds of business or workplace cultures, some of those things get rewarded differently than others. Not that one is right or wrong, good or bad, but we can kind of go, well, how am I, let's say, a match or not a match to the environment that I'm in? And is it the right environment, or is there something actually I might want to grow in my capacity there, or adjust in my energy or my what I can bring forward there? A number of years ago, a teacher said to me something like, sometimes you can feel like a thin stream. And I didn't take it that well at the time, but I think it was really a beautiful assessment around the way that I was running my energy. That was a very kind of quiet, subtle, held in, delicate type of presence that in some contexts is really serving me, and in other contexts actually wasn't. In particular, we're talking about me as a teacher and someone who could stand in front of a room and really captivate and hold people's attention. So this might be another thing to consider if you're exploring, well, what is that? What is my energy like actually? Another aspect of this domain of embodied leadership energy is your reaction to both triggers and opportunities. So this starts to get a little bit overlappy with where we were in the emotional domain, but it can be more subtle than that, or it can just be a sort of a different way of feeling into it. So in this situation, when my hot button gets pushed or when I'm triggered, my energy goes here, or it feels this way. Maybe it isn't even really an emotion or a mood. It's just like a kind of quality that comes forward when I'm under a certain kind of pressure. Same thing with opportunities. When I get an opportunity, my energy does X. My vibration shifts in this way. I sort of feel to the world a little bit differently, or you can feel me more or less in reaction to certain kinds of situations. So this might be part of that. And then another thing that would go into this bucket is what I would call almost like transmit or receive, or kind of arrow going out or arrow going in. We could say even like electric or magnetic polarity in your presence. So do you tend to be someone who people are experiencing as out, out, out at them in a direction, or in toward you, drawing in? That could be, positive or negative, right? That could be like black hole drawing in, or that could be like, wow, come over here. I have something to invite you into, kind of in type energy. So there are probably many more things that can go in this bucket, but I wanted to just give you a couple of examples. And as you explore this or consider this for yourself, you can kind of ask that question, like what is the energetic signature, or is there kind of a blueprint for you, or a fingerprint for you of how you tend to show up kind of quality-wise and energetically. It can also connect to moods. So, we talked about, for example, like an ongoing mood of slight depression, for example, that could be part of one's character and embodiment. Here in an energetic, you might see it's like a little bit of like a sense of a droop in the energy or in the vibe in someone, or a shininess or an enthusiasm that they might exude. Again, neither better nor worse, just different kinds of imprints or different kinds of signatures. So that's all part of what you might observe. And ultimately, everyone's version of this is a bit like a unique signature. I'm overall in general in this type of vibe, or my energy seems to be this type of way most of the time. And then in certain kinds of situations, maybe a different version. But ultimately, this part of ourself, like the other domains of embodiment, may open certain doors and may leave other kinds of doors closed. There's just something about her. This is an X factor. Therefore, we want her to come to this party or lead this initiative. Oh, there's something, going on over here where it's like I tend to pull away from that because it isn't a match for my vibe, or in some way it is different than compelling. I hope that makes sense. A couple of quick examples before we wrap today, just to give you a few versions of how this can play out in a leadership context. So one client story, a number of years ago, I was working with someone who was the executive director of a nonprofit, and her particular energetic imprint was to turn down enthusiasm. So it was almost like a dulling or a numbing, or a bit like if you had a volume switch and you would turn it on. So when she get excited about something, her energy would go zhoop, and she would drop, almost like a droop and a turn down. And what was interesting about that was that she had amazing ideas. She had a big vision for her team. She had a lot going on. She had a lot of experience also. But in those moments when she went to share and kind of invite her team to come on a ride with her, or went to present something new that was going to ask a lot of commitment, she would just get energetically very quiet and down, and kind of more sort of soft and subtle. For her, the work really ended up being building in a sort of physical embodied container, if you will, like really building her presence to be able to tolerate and run more excitement and electric kind of energy through her, for the sake of being able to galvanize or spark that interest, spark that excitement in her team. Another example, I think of a couple different people when I tell this story, but one person in particular coming to mind, where she was fairly senior in her career and looking to get promoted from where she was to an executive level position. And a lot of her energy was bubbly, it was playful, it was fun, it was kind of like excited, it was very light, very up. And generally speaking, people really loved that about her. It absolutely was one of her kind of gifts and superpowers. It was something that really made people enjoy being with her, being in the workplace with her. It certainly moved things in some ways. And there was a way in which, for certain kinds of scenarios that she needed to step into in executive level leadership, it wasn't a total match. It almost gave the impression of not taking something important seriously enough. And so for her, the work was expanding her energetic range to be able to still bring that part of herself in the moments when it really was the right note to be seeking or moving from. And then also to be able to cultivate like a groundedness and a deeper, almost heavier kind of like qualities, like a heavier, darker, kind of more solid type of energy in her presence, that could be a location she could get to when that was really what was called for the sake of being received by a different kind of audience, or being able to play in a different kind of sandbox. Not that one should or shouldn't bring any particular kind of energy. It was really her own self-assessment, like, I want to be able to have that gear on my gear shifter so that I can wield a different kind of power with a certain kind of person in this particular kind of context. Okay, so you may see yourself inside of some of those examples or none of them. But regardless, as we've done each day this week, I want to give you some homework to experiment and to research this for yourself. So the homework is really to pay attention to the subtle aspects of your embodiment, this kind of energetic presence aspect of you, over the next 24 hours. And as usual, to do this with as much compassion, curiosity, and just kind of love for yourself that you can muster. If you have been taking notes over the last couple of days, it can be a great exercise. It's like, over the course of the day, check in a couple of times. What's my vibe like, to use a really woo kind of word, but we kind of know what that means in the vernacular, right? It's like, well, how is my energy right now? What's the quality of it? What am I vibing? And to really be taking note. What's interesting about that is that, a total match for, like, am I kind of always going with every scenario and I'm just like, my vibe is like whatever else is happening? Or is there more of a signature or an imprint that's kind of unique to you? Maybe it's like, oh, in this case, I go somewhere different than other people, or this is sort of the undertone of all of it a lot of the time. And then you can be in the question, how is that serving? Or maybe how's that not serving my leadership, my resilience, the impact that I want to make in the world? Okay, I hope that is helpful. It's been a pleasure to be here on this learning journey with you all over the last couple of days. If you are enjoying this content and you'd like to go deeper, I highly recommend that you consider joining us for the masterclass next week, next Thursday, on your body, your partner. And again, the intention of this masterclass is to give you more tools to really be able to use the domains of embodiment and what else you're learning about embodiment to transform, to really start to apply it to your leadership and to your life. The rest of the title is It's Your Body, Your Partner, the only proven path to greater presence, purpose, and power without burnout. And I would say the intention behind this title is to acknowledge the trade-off we sometimes make between things in our leadership. So between more power, more impact, but then I'm burning out. Between I'm really rocking it in my professional life, but kind of not so much on the personal side, and vice versa, right? That there's, I believe, a key in really working deeply with our embodiment to have it all in a way that isn't possible when we're ignoring and not listening to or not learning from the wisdom of our bodies. So that is my preview. I hope you'll join us next week for a deeper dive on all of this work. And as always, if you have interest in learning more about Guts and Grace, the coaching and mastermind program, or just the body of work itself, please feel free to check us out at gutsandgrace.com. If you'd like to book a discovery session, gutsandgrace.com/apply for going deeper in a one-on-one way on how to apply the work to you personally. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out and ping me here on the channels. And I'm happy to dive in deeper or to help meet your needs if I possibly can. Thank you for being here on the Friday before a holiday weekend. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon.